You can't follow Jesus Christ and be a Freemason. Part 3. Before we start, I'm the hyperlink of a former Freemason who was saved by Jesus Christ from about a decade of false light. I saw the deception of the false light. Now I'm telling the world that it's impossible to follow Jesus and be a Freemason. The third reason is very simple. It makes you unequally yoked. And most people don't understand the process or the concept of being yoked, equally or unequally nowadays. I mean, when's the last time that you guys hooked up your oxen to a wagon, right? It's a whole different world, 2,000 years ago in the Bronze Age than it is today. So the concept of being yoked needs maybe a little bit of explanation. Back in Jesus' times, when you had two animals and you needed to pull a cart or a wagon, you would yoke them together. That's that thing right up there that connects both of their necks, basically. So what the yoke did is it evenly distributed the load of the wagon between the brown ox and the white ox. And when you had two oxen that were equal in size, roughly, they would be equally yoked, and the load would be shared between the two of them, and the cart would go perfectly straight down the road. So Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew says to take on his yoke, because his yoke is easy and his burden is light. But what happens when you make one of the oxen much bigger than the other? They're unequally yoked. And Paul, in his second letter to the church in Corinth, said, "Don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers." And in the early church, the concept of being equally yoked meant to have close fraternal or family or brotherly, sisterly bonds with another person. And if you were unequally yoked, he was warning against having those very, very intimate relationships with people who weren't believers of Jesus Christ. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a hidden camera of a Freemason Master Mason ritual. This is the definition of yoking yourself to somebody. This man is on his hands and his knees. His hand is on, I'm assuming, the Bible, but it doesn't have to be the Bible. He's got a shirt off. These guys are performing a ritual to make him a member of their brotherhood. And if every man in this room were a professed believer in Jesus Christ, then this would be sketchy at best. The unequal yoking comes when not everyone in the room is a follower of Jesus Christ. So let's say that one of the guys follows Allah, one of the guys is a Norse pagan, 3 or 4 of the guys are Christian, the young man becoming a Freemason is a Christian, and say one of the guys is a Jew. The act of this ritual is unequally yoking yourself with non-believers. So what happens when you unequally yoke yourself with non-believers? Well, the cart goes off the path. Why? Because the bigger ox will take over and pull the other ox in its direction that it wants to go. So it will get off the straight path. So by praying to a generic grand architect out of respect for every other man's false religion is basically unequally yoking yourself. As a follower of Jesus Christ, you're supposed to yoke yourself with him so that you stay on his path that he made for your life. I guess the question is, how can you fully serve Jesus when you yoke yourself to people who don't believe in him? Once again, I suggest you take a look at the second letter of Corinthians 6:14. Also pop into the Gospel of Matthew chapter 11. And remember, Jesus is enough. That's all you need. The rest of it is just distraction.